When you make those into percentages, when I add them up, what do I get? The total of these.
Is it 100?
Yeah. It's actually going to be 120. So what we're going to do is to find the decimal, we're going to divide each of these and convert that into our percentage. So using your calculator, put in 57 divided by 120. What do you get?
0.475.
0.475. Now transfer that into a
47%.
47%. What about 19 divided by 120?
It was 50%.
50%. 26 divided by 120? 21%. And last 18 divided by 120. 15%. So when we're going to make my pie chart, I'm going to use it according to those percents. So the first one is a little bit less than 50%. 50% would be cutting the circle in half. So we'll do a little bit less than 50%. And this will be visual. That's 47% right there. 47%. Now the other three, there's 2 15s and 1 21. Okay. So let's see. There's my 21%. And that is tactile. And this I divide in 2. And I have auditory at 15%. And I have kinesthetic at 15%. Okay. So the way you do that is you start by adding up the total number of students and do not assume that it's just 100. Okay. And that will turn into 57% or 19, 26% or 18%. You have to count them all up. You ended up with 120. You just put it underneath, find the decimal, convert it to a percentage. Okay. So you're going to be turning those in, but you can turn them in at the end of class. So the packet that you should have picked up, which is this one right here, it's called Distorted Points of View. Distorted points of view. And this is where we start talking about function notation. Okay.
This
Yes.
Marshall, how do you do? What's the difference between one domain and the other domain? Like
One domain and the other domain.
like what? Like some have all their own or some are like all the X.
Hold on that question. Let me go over this thing real quick, and then you'll have some free time to do that.
This is all homework.
Yep. It's not as hard as it looks. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about function notation. Function notation is when you have something with an f of x. And that's how you say it. You say f of x, right? Now, for this particular one, on number 1, it says the following are some values for the function of f. That means if I have an x value, and these are all my x's right here. These are my y's. Okay? So if I have an x value of -2, and I put in my function, positive 2 comes out. If I have an x value of -1, I put in my function, positive 1 comes out. And continuing on, I have a function, an x value of 0, put in my function, and 3 comes out. Okay? And these right here are going to be really important in doing all the rest of the packet. So you may want to write these over to the side, and you're going to have to be flipping back and forth. Okay? So if you have like a stretch sheet of paper, and I'll put it over here on the side in marker, but you know, you're going to be flipping back and forth, and it kind of gets tired to flip back and forth all the time. Okay, so I already showed that this is your x values right here, and your y's are going to be coming out on the other side. So we're going to be filling in this chart. Just below is the graph of the same function f. Complete the table for the values for the function. So here, I have x is equal to -2. That's my first one right here. My x is -2, my y is 2. Second one, my x is -1, my y is 1. I have x for 0, y is 3.
So basically,
yeah, it basically tells you. So you just copy it down. 2 goes to 2, 3 goes to -2, and 4 goes to 2.
So that's how the rest of it is?
No. The rest of it gets a little bit more complicated. 2, and you come over here and you go -2 up 2, and here's 1 point. Then I have -1, 1, -1, 1 right here. And then all of these points are already plotted for you. This is going to be used as your original graph. And if you kind of flip through the other pages, you will have a graph that looks exactly like this on every single table or every single graph coordinate grid that you have. That's going to be your starting graph. Now, on each one of the tables you're going to fill out, you're going to also have to draw the corresponding graph and tell how it changes from the original. That's why they drew the original on there. Okay. So you start off, you have your starting graph, and then your graph is going to change. Okay. So let's look at the first one. Let's look at number 2. At the top, it gives us our equation. It says y is equal to f of x plus 2 in parentheses. And it is very important to note that the parentheses are around both x plus 2, both, all of that. Okay. So what we're going to do is here's our x, and we're going to plug that in that equation. So now I'm going to do my work down here. Y is equal to f of, and I'm working again with -4 to begin with. I'm going to plug in the -4 plus 2 and in my parentheses. Now, can I simplify this? -4 plus 2 is what? -2. So I can simplify this. I can say, okay, that y is equal to f of -2. Now, this right here, this whole thing is 2. I go back to this other page, and I see right here, f of -2 is equal to 2, positive 2. So, this thing right here becomes 2. So I come over here to my process, and really all of this will go under your process.
Is it like all of it, or just? Do we stop at 2 or like all of it?
Until you get to f of -2. Get it, guys. Okay, so let's try another problem. Erase this.
Can we do it rest paper?
You can if you want. You should be able to fit it in there. You don't have to write it as long as I did. Kind of put it down. Anyway, so let's try 0. Let's do the 0 one, this one right here. So I have y is equal to f of 0 plus 2. I now have f of what?
2.
2. So I turn back to my other page, and I see that f of 2 is going to be 2. So that just goes to 2. I would write my process, and then 2 comes in the bit. So this part right here is what you would write in the process.
So number 1 would be -2, right?
Number 1, this one right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do it. So f of 1 plus 2 goes to f of 3. And I go back to my other page, and I see f of 3 is -2. Yeah. So my answer for x being 1 would be okay. And so you keep on in that way. Now, number 3 right here, you're doing the same thing, except instead of adding 2, you subtract 2. Okay, so your numbers will be different. Okay. So you think you got a good handle on that? You can fill out the rest of that chart, no problem? Okay, now let's move on. Because like I said, they get a little bit harder. So now let's look at this one. And this one changes a bit. What's the difference between number 5 and number 3? We're not multiplying, but we are adding 2 after we come over and find that f of x. Okay. So before our plus 2 was inside the parentheses. Now it's behind. Okay, after it. Okay, outside of it. So let's try one of these. We have y is equal to f of we'll do -1. to be positive 1. Okay, so this whole thing comes down to positive 1, and I still burn down my plus 2. What's 1 plus 2? So plug in 3 for y. See how that changes? Instead of the 2 being inside the parentheses, before, for a problem that's similar, when I was doing 1, I got out a negative 2 because my 2 was inside the parentheses right here.
So I didn't get negative 1.
On this one, I started out with negative 1, f of negative 1. Right?
Oh, and then you go like 2.
And then I go and check and see on that front page what f of negative 1 is. I found that it's 1. And then I add the 2. Okay? So you're not adding the 2 first and then finding f of x. You're finding f of x and then adding the 2. See the difference? It's pretty similar, but it's a little bit different in the order of how you do it. Okay? And again, number 6 is the same except for this one is a minus. Okay? No problems filling that out? Okay. Continuing on. Again, it gets a little bit more difficult. Now we have a 2 in front of the x, inside the parentheses. So let's see how that'll change things. Y is equal to f of, and I have 2 times x. Which x am I going to do? Should I do negative 1? 2 times negative 1. What's 2 times negative 1? Negative 2. So f of 2 times negative 1 becomes f of negative 2. Now I go back to that first page. And I see f of negative 2 is that top one, and it is equal to positive 2. So this goes to 2. That's negative 2 right there for my 1. Does that make sense? Cindy? Good? Okay. And again, number 9, the difference is instead of multiplying by 2, you're dividing by 2. So you take 1/2 of whatever your x might be. So for the first one, negative 4. What's half of negative 4? Negative 2, right? So f of negative 2, you go check what it is. F of negative 2 is 2. It's a positive 2. Okay? And you just continue on like that. Really quickly, I'm going to go over this. 11, y is equal to 2 f of x. What do you think we're doing there? We're finding f of x first, and then we're multiplying by 2 for my 1. Okay? So you just do what it tells you to do.
Wait, so like that one too?
So this one, y is equal to 2 f of x. Which x am I going to use?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. So I come over here and I put 2 f of negative 2. What's f of negative 2? Turn it back to that first page. Okay, so I end up with 2 times 2, which is 4. So my 4 is right there. Okay. Each time I'm just replacing this f of x.
So like you don't have to find the f when you're 4. Now
No.
Then 4.
No. It's just 4. Because you already found your f right here. So you did it before, and then you multiplied by 2 to get to that point. Okay. And so all through this packet, you're just doing what it tells you to do. Now let's go back to that first one right here. All right. Once you fill out the whole table, I want you to plot the points. So right here, we'll have negative 4 and 2. So you come plot negative 4 and 2. Yeah, you also have 0 and 2. And you're going to plot all those points and draw the lines connecting them. And see how it changes from your original graph. Here's your original one. And you're going to show me how it changes. Okay. So after you plot all the points that you found on that new table, and what you're actually going to see is that this whole graph right here, it just moves this direction 2 units. So this point right here, it moved over to this one 2 units. point here, 1, 2. It's now there. This point right here, 1, 2. It's now there. This point here, 1, 2. It's now right there. So all of these units go over, these points go over 2 units. So your U graph would be that. Does that look similar to that one that we've already drawn? Or the one that was already drawn on there for you? It's just moved over. It slid to the left 2 units. And if you notice down here at the bottom at number 4, that it says to examine 2 and 3, compare each graph to the original graph of x. What stays the same and what changes? So for number 2, the shape stays the same. But it shifts left. Two units. Okay? Any questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let you get started on that work, and if you have any other questions, let me know. And
Are all of them going to be the same shape?
No, they will not. Once you get into the later graphs, the shapes might change a bit. Okay, so you have to be aware of that, and you just have to see what kind of difference